morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told how to voice the radio, so today we need to talk about the FAQ for Surging Sparks. Pre-releases have now begun. The set is out at the end of next week, and as I've told you many times before, if you're gonna play the game, you need to know the rules. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where I come in. Well, me and the lovely folks over at Pokegym.net, who have, of course, published the official FAQ, as they do for every set. And yes, it's on Pokegym, not on Pokemon.com, but as I always tell you, this is 100% official. It is the actual FAQ. So, starting off then with Kecleon here, we've got ourselves a rather nice ability, Expert Hider, which pretty much is me when I'm playing hide and seek with my kids, because they're very young. And the ability says that if any damage is done to this Pokemon by attacks, flip a coin. If heads, you prevent that damage. Well, what about Tatsugiri EX's attack? Tatsugiri EX has the attack Surprise Pump that says the attack is not affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So what if Tatsugiri attacks and then Kecleon flips heads? Well, Tatsugiri does 100 damage. Basically, you attack. If Kecleon flips tails, it does 100 damage. If they flip heads, it would prevent, except for the fact that Tatsugiri goes through that effect, so it still does 100 damage. And we might be talking Surging Sparks here, but tomorrow on Halloween, we are doing a box break of Twilight Masquerade on Whatnot, whatnot.com/invite/thewassie to get £10 credit, get some free packs. Come and join us tomorrow for a Twilight Masquerade box break, chat some spooky stories. It's gonna be fun. Now, Pikachu EX has the ability Resolute Heart, whereby if it's got full HP and would be KO'd by damage from an attack, it goes down to 10 HP remaining instead. Okay. What about Roaring Moon EX? Roaring Moon EX, let's assume there's a stadium in play. Roaring Moon EX gets an instant one-hit KO. Will it KO Pikachu, or will Pikachu go down to 10 HP remaining? Nah, Pikachu's donezo. And the reason is very simple. Resolute Heart stops a one-hit KO by damage from an attack. This is not damage, it is an automatic one-hit KO, which is an effect of an attack, not damage, and therefore will go through Resolute Heart. But let's say, for argument's sake, that Roaring Moon EX uses Calamity Storm, discards a stadium, does 220, well, then Pikachu would be left with 10 damage remaining, because that would be damage from an attack. There we go. Job's a good un. Now, Quaquavel has got the ability Up Tempo, which, I'll be honest, is not one we've talked about a lot on this channel. You must put a card from your hand onto the bottom of your deck in order to use this ability, and then once during a turn, you draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. Cool. Can I use it to put a card from my hand on the bottom of my deck if I've got 6 or more cards in my hand, just to get a card out of my hand? No. You have to be able to draw when using this ability, so if putting a card under the bottom of your deck leaves you unable to draw, you're not able to use the ability. Now, Victini's got the rather nice ability Victory Cheer, which nice and simply just says that your Evolution Fire Pokemon, not all of them, just Evolution, do 10 more damage with their attacks. Well, if I put a Skeledirge directly into play using Tatsugiri Cinnabar Lure, that really nice attack we've talked about before that lets you play cards directly from your deck even if they're not basic, does it still get 10 more damage? Yes. It's not an evolved Pokemon because you haven't evolved it, you've put it straight into play. However, it is still an evolution Pokemon because it is a stage 2 evolution. It's an unevolved evolution Pokemon, but it still totally counts and gets the extra damage from Victini. Now, Togekiss has got one of the coolest abilities in the set, and it says that while it's in play, if you KO your opponent's active Pokemon, flip a coin, and if heads, take an extra prize. Which is an absurdly good ability. Redonkulous ability. Oh, and it doesn't stack. Well, if I've got Togekiss in play, and my opponent's active has 10 HP remaining and is poisoned, when it's KO'd during Pokemon Checkup, do I get to flip a coin to try and take an extra prize? Yes. And here's the thing. Yes, the KO happens during Pokemon Checkup, but the wording on Togekiss says when your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. So it's during either player's turn or during Pokemon Checkup. It doesn't have to be from an attack. It could be an ability. It could be poison. It could be damage counters. It could be confusion. It could be burn. It could be anything. But remember, it only looks at your opponent's active Pokemon. People are going to get confused by this one. The rule is very simple. If the active Pokemon gets knocked out at any point, in any way, and Togekiss is on the field, flip a coin to take an extra prize, but only one at a time. If you take multiple KOs during a turn, you can use this ability multiple times. It doesn't say once per turn. It just says it doesn't stack. So multiple Togekiss, you only get to flip one coin. And to be clear, you only flip one coin. It's not if you've got 3, you can only get 1 heads. It's you can only flip 1 coin. But if you can take multiple KOs, you can take multiple extra prizes. By the way, the only official part in the FAQ was it doesn't matter when it happens or how it happens. The whole, you can use it multiple times per turn, but not multiple times on the same KO. That's just me reading the card. Now, Gouging Fire has got a very nice attack here, whereby it does 100 damage, but if your opponent has 4 or fewer prize cards remaining, then it does 70 more damage. What about pre-releases where we start with 4 prizes? Oh, it always does 170. First time I looked at this card, I told you that it was going to be a beast in pre-releases. It is a beast in pre-releases. Now, I mentioned Tatsugiri earlier. We should have a quick chat about that, dude. Cinnabar Lure, free energy, look at the top 10 cards of your deck. You may put any number of Pokemon you find there onto your bench. Does that include Stage 1 and Stage 2? Yeah, it absolutely does. And then we got the whole Skeledirge Victini thing I told you earlier, where if Skeledirge is played by Tatsugiri, it counts as an unevolved evolution Pokemon. Still totally works. What about Pode and Tauros, who does an extra 90 damage to a Stage 1 Pokemon? If it's a Stage 1 that was played by Cinnabar Lure, does Tauros still do 180? Yes. It's an unevolved Stage 1 Pokemon, so it does take the extra damage. Now, Armarouge in this set, Crimson Blaster, free energy, discard all fire energy from this Pokemon, and it does 180 damage to one of my opponent's bench Pokemon. Okay. Well, what if my opponent has no bench Pokemon? I mean, I would recommend not using the attack, personally. But if you use this when your opponent has no bench Pokemon, then you discard all fire energy from this Pokemon. It's not a dramatic pause. Nothing else happens. There is no bench Pokemon to be targeted. The attack specifically says bench Pokemon not active, so you would discard all energy from this Pokemon, all fire energy. And that would be it. That would be the attack. If there's no bench Pokemon, don't use this attack. Friendly advice on your old pal Wassy. Now, Rotom comes back around in this set with a phenomenal attack here, and it is single energy. Your opponent reveals their hand, discard all item cards and Pokemon tool cards that you find there. Well, can I choose not to discard certain items or tools, maybe to clog my opponent's hand? Let's say, for argument's sake, I know they've got a Bibarel, and they're going to be drawing until they've got 5 cards in their hand, so I want to discard cards that they're going to want, but keep cards in their hand they're not going to want to try and clog up their hand so they can't draw. No, is the answer there. It is discard all items and tools, so you must discard all of them. If you use it, they all go down. Now, Braviary makes a return in Surging Sparks, and Braviary here has got Drag Off, 2 energy, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active, and do 40 damage to that new active. What if my opponent has no bench Pokemon? Then this attack does nothing. It doesn't do 40 to the active. It drags a bench Pokemon active and does 40 to the new active. If there is no new active, there is no damage being done here. Sorry about that. Now, Wo Chien here has Entangling Whip, 130 damage, and you discard the top 3 cards of your deck. Okay. Well, if I knock out my opponent's active Pokemon to take my last prize card, while also discarding the final 3 cards in my deck, who wins the game? You should know this one, by the way. You win the game. Because you don't lose when you run out of cards. You lose if you are unable to draw a card at the start of your turn. It's like how in +3 turns at the end of a game, if your turn free of time, you can't deck out because there will never be another turn for you to deck out. If your opponent's turn free of time and they mill the last cards in your deck, they don't win the game because it never goes back to you to deck out. You have to have a turn where you try and draw a card and fail in order to lose by decking out. Vivian is back here with the rather lovely Evo Powder attack. And what Evo Powder does is for each of your bench Pokemon, search your deck for a card that evolves from it and evolve into it. Can I use that to evolve a basic Pokemon I just put into play this turn? Yeah, you can. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. This is breaking the rules of evolution. And as a side note, if you use this to evolve a basic you just put into play, then at the start of your next turn it will be a stage 1, ready to evolve into a stage 2. Walreign's got Frigid Fangs, single energy, 60 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, Pokemon that have 2 or fewer energy attached can't attack. Okay. Well, if I use it on my opponent's turn, they move Walreign to the bench, do they still need more than 2 energy? Yes. It is an ability which affects all of your opponent's Pokemon. Ergo, it doesn't matter if your active switches, if your opponent's active switches, all of that is irrelevant. Oranguru's got the wonderfully named attack, Now You're in My Power. For a single colourless energy, until the end of your next turn, the defending Pokemon's weakness is now colourless. Does it mean they're weak to all types? No! It means they're weak to colourless. If it has no weakness to begin with, do you still make it weak to colourless? Yes. Even if they've got no weakness, it still gives them a ×2 weakness. Although it is the defending Pokemon's weakness, so if they switch to the bench and come active, it will unfortunately reset it. Paralyzing Crackle is the name of Stunfisk's new attack. 2 energy, 50 damage, flip a coin, if heads paralysis, and discard an energy attached to the defending Pokemon. Okay. Well, if I flip Tails, do I still get to discard an energy? Nah. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. You are flipping for paralysis and discard. It is not flip for paralysis. Discard happens anyway. Sorry about that. A card that's already seen a bunch of play in Japan and does have a lot of potential is the new Terrapago. Single energy, Prism Charge. Search your deck for 3 basic energy cards of different types and attach them to your Terra Pokemon in any way that you like. Well, can I attach it to Terrapagos? No. And here's a funny thing. Terrapagos literally says on the card, in the flavor text in the middle, Terra Pokemon. It is literally the Terra Pokemon. That's what it's called. It's not a Terra Pokemon, so you can't attach to it. And I'll be honest with you, I'd never even noticed this one. I actually think this one's kind of funny. Maybe my favourite attack in the entire new set is the new Koraidon's attack, Unrelenting Onslaught. Firstly, another phenomenal attack name. Secondly, I'm 100% building around this card. 30 damage, but if any of your ancient Pokemon use an attack during your last turn, it does 180 instead. Well, what if my Koraidon used Unrelenting Onslaught last turn? Do I still activate the extra damage? Yeah, you do. because it doesn't matter. It's any ancient Pokemon use any attack. That is the requirement here for you to get the extra damage. And this is, of course, hugely important, because if we're using Koraidon here, what we really want to do a lot of the time is use Unrelenting Onslaught turn after turn after turn, so it's very important that it will then activate the rest of it. Now, this is one of the longest FAQs we've had for Pokemon for a while, but we've got a bunch of trainer cards we need to have a look at as well, like Amulet of Hope. This is the A-Spec whereby if the Pokemon it is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, search your deck for any free cards and whack them into your hand. Well, if I've only got one card left in my deck, what happens then? You're fine. You must take at least one card with Amulet of Hope when it activates. So if you've only got one, you only take one, job's a good 'un. Speaking of A-Specs, Brilliant Blender. This is the one that lets you search your deck for any 5 cards and discard them. Great if you're playing from the discard pile. If I play it, but don't want to discard any cards in my deck, can I choose to discard no cards? Nah, mate. Very similar to Amulet of Hope, you need to discard at least one card in order for this to actually work. Otherwise, don't play it. Energy Search Pro, we're apparently looking at A-Specs now. Search your deck for any number of basic energy cards of different types, reveal them, put them into your hand. Can I search for multiple basic energy cards of different types, like 3 grass, 2 fire, and 4 water? No! Obviously not. You could have one card of each energy type, that is it. Megaton Blower. We're still talking about A-Specs here. Megaton Blower is the discard all Pokemon tools and special energy from all of your opponent's Pokemon and discard any stadium in play. What if there's no stadium, no tools, and no special energy? You can't play it. You cannot play a card for no effect, but as long as there is one tool or one special energy or a stadium, as long as you can get one card with this, then yes, you can play it. Now, Surfer might not be the best card in the set, but we still need to have a chat about it. Switch your active Pokemon with your bench, and then draw until you got 5 cards in your hand. Can I use Surfer to switch my active with a bench Pokemon, even if there's no cards left in deck? The exact quote from the official FAQ, sure thing, bro. I love that. If I have no Pokemon on my bench, can I play Surfer? No way, dude. You must be able to switch a Pokemon from the bench in order to play Surfer. And finally, last one, we made it to the end. We've got time for one more ruling. It's time. Tell your opponent the name of a Pokemon in your hand and put that Pokemon face down in front of you. Your opponent guesses that Pokemon's HP, and then you reveal it. If they guessed right, they draw 4 cards. If they guessed wrong, you draw 4 cards, and then return the Pokemon to your hand. Well, can I play Ceruledge EX face down? Can I just put it face down and say Ceruledge? No, that's not the name of the card. The card is Ceruledge EX, so you must say Ceruledge EX. And there we go, a longer FAQ than normal, but we got through. That's all the rulings, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these rulings make sense. Tell me which you're excited about. Tell me if any are confusing. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about, well, Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And of course, get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Quentin Journeau, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.